As you said, my name is Ralph Harris. I work for Natural Resource Conservation Service out of Hope, Arkansas. I work as a grassland specialist. I actually work in 29 counties in South Arkansas. Somebody asked me a while ago what I do, and I said I stay behind the steering wheel. I cover lots of ground. They wanted me to talk about pasture management. I'm going to kind of go from a different angle. I'm going to talk about the drought. How many had a drought last year? I'm going to back it a little further. When did that drought start? Everybody talks about the drought of 2011. When did it start?
Started way before then.
It started way before then, but everybody talks about 2011. Because we had no hay, we had no pasture, we had to import everything. When did the drought actually start? And y'all done heard me talk enough. If you don't speak up, I'm gonna pick up. I say it actually started about 4 years ago. The drought didn't really actually start 4 years ago, but our problem started 4 years ago. Why? What did we have 4 years ago? Do you remember? 2008, 2009, what did we have? We had high rainfall. Normally we get about 52 inches. What did we get those years? One of the years we got 86 inches. Why did that set us up for a drought in 2010, 2011?
Too much rain?
Too much rain? Okay, but what did it do?
Was it La Nina or,
The roots on those grass plants were about this deep because they didn't have to go anywhere to get moisture.
oh, okay.
If it starts getting dry, those plants are going to put roots further down to get moisture. Well, we had 2 years, 70, 80 plus inches of rainfall, so our grass roots were about that deep. Well, our drought, I'll tell you, actually started in March of 2010, which we're coming up on 24 months from when it started. Those grass roots were short. Mother Nature shut off the water, and there we were sitting with no root system to go down and suck up that moisture. So our drought actually started in March of 2010. And I don't know, I work for USDA, so I keep up with the rainfall records, because when FSA has a drought problem, I'm one of those people they call and say, okay, give me a drought assessment. What percentage grazing loss have we had? Well, I've got to go back through all the data, look at it, and make my scientific wild guess as to what percentage loss we had. So it actually started in March of 2010. How many normal rainfall months? Does anybody know what normal weather is? I'd sure love somebody to tell me, because I don't know what normal is anymore. You know, we go from 86 inches to 25 inches another year. It's hard to grow grass when you got that much variation unless you got irrigation or somebody to fix it. Okay. Those last 24 months, we've had 6 months that were almost normal. Okay, let's just back it down. Last spring, did we get good rain last spring? April, May, we got pretty good rain, didn't we? Okay, how did we get that rain? Did it come in an inch or a half inch at a time, or how did we get all that? We got normal moisture in April, May last year. How did we get it?
What done?
We got it in 4 or 5 inches in a bucket load, didn't we? What happens to that moisture?
Don't.
It goes to Bartholomew, goes on down to Washita, Mississippi, and it's gone. So rock along. April and May was pretty good. What did we do in June? We got 7/10. And I'm quoting Prescott data because that's where I live. We got 7/10. In July, what did we get? We got 2800ths. You know, so we've had 6 months out of 24 that's halfway normal, which means nothing works. So I'm gonna shift a little bit and go to grazing management. Why would grazing management be so important?
The times like you were talking about, drought and all that.
Okay? Let me go from a little different approach here. Everybody knows we've had a drought. We've got problems out there. How do you fix the drought? I did a meeting last night in Nashville last night, and a little guy raised his hand back there and he said, I pray.
Irrigation.
That's all well and good. But, you know, the good Lord's going to give us what he thinks we need. So we're going to have to do with what he gives us. Okay? In drought management, what am I going to do right now to try to help the drought situation for my grazing this next summer? But I raise cows. And buddy, I didn't have no hay. I didn't have much grass. So how am I going to try to fix that and try to improve my grass for this year?
Decrease your herd.
Pardon?
Decrease your herd.
Okay. Decreased your herd last summer, last fall, get those numbers down where they're manageable. It's a good thing. Should have already done that a long time ago. What's one thing I can do right now to start helping my grass? Getting prepared to grow grass this summer. Fertilizer, okay. How many have taken a soil sample on your place? Current soil sample in the last year or so, okay? If you hadn't done that, I'm gonna tell you right now, you need to go do that. Because you need to know what's in that bucket to grow grass. And a lot of us didn't put out fertilizer last summer because it was so dry. What did we do by not putting out fertilizer last summer? We hurt our grass for this summer because it went into wintertime in a weakened condition, didn't have the nutrients to come back and really start growing now. So I'm telling you right now, go home and get you a soil test. And if it needs some of it, fertilizer, whatever it needs, feed it. How many muscle builders you ever seen that sit around and eat fruit? What are they gonna eat? All the protein and stuff they get, right? Carbohydrates to build themselves up. Same thing with grass. You're gonna have to build that grass to get it to come out. What's another problem that we're gonna have this summer that we may not have had in the last 2 or 3 years, whatever? Most of us had our pastures in good shape. There was no weeds. We was growing grass. What are we gonna have this summer?
A lot of weeds,
A lot of weeds. Why?
no winter.
No winter, okay. I'm gonna say we're gonna have lots of weeds because the good Lord made this earth and He gives you 1 square foot. It's only gonna grow so much. And whether it's grass or weeds, it's only gonna grow so much.
Weeds are all nutrients.
Your grass is thinned out and spread out. Weeds are more efficient on fertilizer pulling up and moisture pulling up. They did pretty good last summer. Our grass has turned belly up and it's suffering. So 2 things, go home and take your soil test. How many of you rotate pastures? Some of you rotate pastures. I'm gonna tell you, if you got more than 1 pasture on your place right now, go home and shut the gates, put the cows, goats, sheep, donkeys, mules, or otherwise in 1 pasture. Why would I want them in 1 pasture right now and leave them? Little green stuff growing right now, but it's, you know, they can get a little green and food out of it. But what are you doing to your grass?
Get it on down.
You're just choking it because it's got to have that leaf area to be able to grow. And if you keep it grazed this short, instead of letting it get on up here and you're going to grow to it, your production is going to do like this. It's going to fall deeper in the well. So you want to shut those gates right now. Let it get some leaf area on it and let it get some roots and get to be a stronger plant before you actually start growing and grazing it. So shut your gates and fertilize right now to set it up to try to alleviate some of that drought problems that we've already got there that we can't change, but we can help it. So like I said, I want to talk about drought management a little bit to start with. Our main topic, and I've only got 30 minutes, and folks tell me that I can't say my name and hello and good morning in 30 minutes, so I've got a timekeeper to keep me straight. Let's just talk about pasture management. What problems have you got? We've already talked about weeds as your problem right now in your pasture. What other problems have you got? You got a bunch of bare spots. You grazed down short last year. You got bare spots. You got any good rains lately? Pretty good rain here lately. You got your weeds. You got those weeds. How many of your cattle would eat weeds? We found out last summer they'd eat a lot of things they wouldn't eat before. Cattle will eat some of the weeds, but you do have weed problems. Compacted areas. I was talking about that heavy rain. You got that 4 and 5 inch rain, and you've got ground that's like this table here, it's bare. What happens to most of that moisture? It goes down the creek. If you've got a good thick grass thatch, what happens to that rain? It's going to slow it down, it's going to soak it in, you're going to get more benefit out of it. A lot of my place, if normal growing year when I've got grass, I can get a rain, and I think, man, I got a good rain. And I go down and look at my creek, and there's no moisture in it. I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. My neighbor must have got more rain because their creek's running. Well, the secret to it was I had grass there that was soaking up that moisture. My neighbor had short grazed pastures. It just hit and run off. So you're going to be able to contain more of that water. Give us the benefits of pasture management. We've already talked a little bit about it. What's some of the big benefits? You got more grass. You got better grass and base and sucking up that moisture.
Less parasites.
Less parasites. Okay, why? Why would that be a
As
penalty?
you're letting them grow up taller.
Okay.
They don't have to eat as long.
If they're grazing grass that's this short, you got your worms, they got eggs that's laid up on that plant. How tall does those worm eggs usually go up that plant? Not that far. Well, we're talking about grazing management, how close do you want to graze it? Somewhere above this, don't you? So you're gonna have less worms. What's another thing? Well, yeah, you're not gonna graze the worm eggs, you're not gonna have worm infestations, yeah, but, okay, they do get worms. In a rotational grazing system, why are your cows gonna be better? Why are they gonna be able to resist the worms more?
More grass?
They're more grass, they're in a healthier condition. The cows are healthier, they're more vibrant, they're gonna be able to resist some of that stuff. So, worms, parasites is a good thing with grazing. What about forage yield? How many have got a continuous grazing system? And I'm not gonna pick on you too bad, so how many of you got a continuous graze, you don't rotate at all? Okay? How many of you rotate cattle? Cattle, sheep, goats, whatever. When I talk about cattle, I'm talking about all livestock. In a rotational, in a continuous grazing system, say we're just looking at $1 here. How much return are you getting on that dollar for what you're putting in? How much are you getting back on a continuous graze where you just got the gates up wide open? How much money you get back out of that dollar? You're getting about 25 to 30 cents out of that dollar. If I step over here and I say, okay, yeah, I'm doing a rotational grazing system, how much am I going to get out of that dollar? How much efficiency can I get? 60 to 70%, you can get up to 60 to 70% efficiency.
Depending on how much ground you got.
How much ground you got, how many cows you got, all that.
What type of cow?
What type of cow, okay, I'm gonna equate that back. How many of you cut hay last summer? What we did, what we found that we could, okay? If we're talking about efficiency level of 25% on a continuous graze as compared to, say, a 70 or 75% on a rotational graze. I put that down to easy math. If you went into a hay field last year, you cut 100 round rolls out of that field. How many of those bales did you haul off that field and put in a haystack or a barn? You cut 100 rolls, how many did you haul out of there? You're gonna haul all you can out of there. You're gonna haul that whole 100 and put them in the barn. If you're in a continuous graze system, you actually only carried out 25 bales out of that field. You left the other 75 to go away, go waste. Row crop farmers, we're in row crop country over here. A lot of folks growing corn, soybeans, and otherwise. How many corn farmers know that they'll go out and plant row after row after row of corn, but when it comes to harvest, they only harvest 1 out of 3. They leave the other 2 in the field. How long do you think they're going to stay in business doing that? Not going to happen. Continuous grazing as compared to rotational grazing. If you're not rotational grazing cattle today, I'm going to tell you you're losing money. Because I cannot operate on 25 to 30% efficiency on my place. I'm going to try to get all of that dollar I can squeeze. And if you're not rotational grazing, you're missing the boat somewhere along the line. You have less erosion. Like I said, I work for Natural Resource Conservation Service. My job is I go out and work with farmers on setting up a rotational intensive grazing system. Whether it's water systems, fencing systems, planting grass. I talk to folks a lot about planting grass. If you call my district, one of our county offices and say, hey, I want Ralph to come to my farm. What's the first thing I'm going to do when I come to that farm? I'm going to do all the hi, how are you, get acquainted. What are we going to do from that point?
Soil sample.
Okay, soil sample, okay. What's the main thing I'm looking for when I come to talk to you on your farm?
What can the cows eat and not eat?
Okay, I'm going to tell you, it's like, how many of you got a GPS where you get in your car and your GPS carries you somewhere? Or if I go to California, I'm going to pick up a map. I'm kind of old school, I use maps. But if I'm going to California, I'm not going to get in the car and go, let's go. I'm going to pull out a map and go, okay, we're going to go this, 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 and this. So what am I looking for when I come to your farm?
A plan.
A plan. I want to know your objectives. Because I can come out there and write you the most beautiful plan on my thinking, what's it worth?
Zilch.
it got me paid for the day, because my salary's gonna be paid anyway. But I'm not gonna get anything, and you're not gonna get what you need out of it. You need to have a goal in mind. Where do you wanna go with this? If you wanna go to town and buy a sack feed, you wanna buy your hay, you wanna feed them all the stuff you buy at the town, that's all well and good. But if you want to make money, I need to know what your goal is to try to get you to that point. And I'm not gonna come out and say, you gotta do this, 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 and this, and you'll make this. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna take what you're telling me, your goals and your objectives, I'm gonna make suggestions. But I work for the government, I'm gonna come out and tell you exactly what you're gonna do, right? No. I'm gonna come out and we're gonna work and try to give you some suggestions. And like I said, I'm not gonna tell you what you've got to do, but I may come up with some suggestions that may help you get to that goal of what you're trying to get to. Like I say, it's kind of a slow process, but it's one of those things, you know, you're gonna need to know what you want and where you wanna be. It's like retirement. How many of you want to go try to retire and you have no idea how much money you're gonna need? Or where you wanna be? Age 60, Bill. I wanna retire at 65. I want to be able to do this, 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 and this. When do you start working on that?
Now,
At 55?
now,
At 20?
now.
If not, by the time you get out there to 60, you're going to come up and go, whoo, man, I wish I'd done so. But it's too late. But like I say, you want to be able to get your goals and objectives and try to figure out where you're going. And that's what I'm paid to do, is try to help you. I'm kind of like a financial advisor. Is he going to tell you, you do this, this, and this, or this, or is he going to give you ideas? Go take your pick. I'm going to try to get you to take your pick. Some of the advantage, continuous grazing. You got one log pasture, it's easy to manage. Rotation grazing, you got multi-pastures, you rotate your cattle, sheep, goats, or whatever, move from pasture to pasture. But you do have to have some investments, how to do it. Water, I mean, you got all the water you want, no problems, right? Most of the times when I go to a farm, the biggest drawback to set up a rotation system is water, having it in the right places. You know, so it's hard to do. The fencing, easy to do. Everybody accuses me of being an electric fence guy, and I do work on electric fence systems. But there are several different ways. How do you, let me just, how much time do I got?
You still got
12 minutes, okay. I've talked about continuous grazing, I've talked about rotational grazing. So how do you go home and set up a rotational grazing? How do you get started?
Start small.
Start small, that's a very good idea. Why? It's easier to manage. You're gonna have to learn it, learn how to do it, less cost to get started. You know, but I'll bet you to guess if all the folks in here, if you've got a farm at home, I would almost venture to guess 9 out of 10 of you could go home and start a rotational system today. With no inputs, nothing added, you can start a rotational system. Why do I say that with pretty good confidence? I get the same look from a lot of people just like you guys. That's the stupidest man I ever seen. The reason I say that is because most places I go have got more than one pasture already. Like you don't, and you're my one. I've always got to have a one. But most places I go to, they may have 40 acres. It's split in half. So how do you start a rotational system?
Close that gate.
Close that gate, period. And you start a rotation system. Yes, you're my one. You know, it's a little more typical than I say. A lot of the places I go to, folks have got 2 pastures, 3 pastures, 4 pastures. And when I talk to them on the surface, they're like, man, I just can't do that rotational grazing. And when I go to their farm, I'm going, why not? Well, I don't know what to do. It's real simple. Close the gates. And you start a rotation system. It didn't cost you a dime. It has no time investment. What's some of the other advantages of having rotation? You got better pastures. You got better health in your cattle. What's one of the big things? I have lots of folks that tell me, I just can't do rotational grazing because I don't have time. What are some of the advantages to rotational grazing besides your better environmental conditions, your better grass, all this other stuff? What's some other advantages?
I don't feed costs.
Cut down feed cost, okay. I've got a lady that I worked with over at Hempstead County, and she put in a beautiful rotational grazing system. She had 15 or 20, 25 pastures. She was not getting the benefit out of it. Why? She had every gate on the farm closed. Why was she not getting benefit?
She wasn't moving.
She had 5 or 6 herds. They were all cow calves. She would break them up into 25 cows and have 6 herds out there. Well, when she went to feed cattle, what did she do? She'd have to go to this pasture and feed, and then she'd have to go to this pasture and feed. And come calving season, it was a nightmare. She went to 6 different pastures to check cattle, to feed them. And I said, Miss Chloe, I said, why don't you put them all in one herd? She said, well, my bulls can only breed 25 cows. So I got them in 25 cow units. I said, have you ever thought about putting multiple bulls in there? It didn't like the look you gave me, boy, there's like, huh? Horns and tails came out everywhere. She looked at me like I was crazy. But she finally tried it, and she was like, man, her feed bills went down because her grass was better, because she had bigger cattle units. It was better management because she'd move them into this pasture and leave them for a couple of days and then move to the next pasture. Her grass got better. Her management time went up. She cut her management and moving cattle and doing about 2/3, 3/4, because she put them all in one bunch. And you can manage the grass better, you can manage the cattle better. And she went to one pasture to feed, check cattle, check calves, and otherwise. About a year after she got into it, she said, why didn't you tell me to do that before? I said, Miss Chloe, I've been telling you this for 6 years. But I couldn't convince her. But she finally did it. And that's part of the problem with rotational grazing is folks have to try it. I'll give you an example. I moved back to my home farm in 1988. My daddy had been raising cows for 50 years. He knew more about raising cows than I'd ever learned. I moved back to the farm, we had 2 pastures. I started in electric fencing, and I had this bright idea that I would divide those pastures smaller and it'd be better. I was way beyond the age of being whooped by my daddy, but he threatened to whoop me. I said, well, I'll buy the fence. All the materials would divide this field up. We had 2 40s. We just rotate cattle between those 2 40s. We were running a certain number of cattle, and we were always good. Well, I moved back, divided one of those 40s into 4 pastures. We rotated those cattle on 4 pastures that summer. The other 40, what did we do with it? We cut hay on it, because we didn't need that grazing. You know what my daddy said the next year?
I'm proud of you.
He said, can we put some more of that in? You got to get past the mindset of like, that's not the way I've always done it. Forget what you ever knew and start trying something different. Everybody gives me a hard time about computers. I don't use computers. I'm hard-headed. I'm not going to use them. I don't do PowerPoint. I still get my message across, but I don't do PowerPoint. So there's different ways to do things. But the problem is trying to change that old mentality. This is the way I've always done it, and that's the way I'm going to do it.
Old mentality.
I'm going to give you one quick example. She's fixing to cut me off. How many of you were in the cow business in 1972? Anybody had cows in 1972? Some of you weren't even alive then, I know. 1972, I sold my first calf for $515, which was dang good money for a 16-year-old. What were diesel prices in 1972?
About 30 cents.
13 cents a gallon. Ammonia back then was $75.
Yeah, that's good.
I want to equate that to today's prices. Up until, the last few months, we're selling $1,200 steers now, which is absolutely crazy.
Good.
Last year we're selling $600 steers last year. $4 diesel, $500 ammonia. My point is, if I'm doing business the same in 2012 as I was doing in 1972, what am I doing? I'm going backwards, folks. I've got to be more efficient with what I'm doing than I was in 1972. Right now, all right. Yes, sir.
Before you get cut off there, I got a question for you.
All right.
We got a little pond on the place there, and up until this last year, it's been holding water. From the start of this one up until now, it hadn't held 2 inches of water.
I can't tell you about looking at it, you know, a lot of times we have not had to run off in the last several months. But I don't know, I can't give you a straight answer on that one, you know, without being there. I want to give you a thing I forgot to give in the first group. I do work for Natural Resource Conservation Service. We do work with farmers, ranchers, and whatever. We do cost sharing programs. We can help cost share on fencing, watering, and stuff like that. So if you're interested in stuff like that, if you know where your USDA office, NRCS office is, if you don't know where it's at, find it. You may can get some financial assistance being able to put some of these practices in. If you want me to come out and visit with you and work with you on your farm, that's what I do. I go out and work with farmers on setting up grazing systems. Like I said, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I may give you some ideas that will help you. If you're interested in some assistance on the farm, I see some folks in here that I've been on some farms, I've been on workshops with different folks in here. If you're interested in my assistance, call your contact, your county contact, tell them you want Ralph Harris to come out and work with you on your pastures. I'd be glad to come work with you. Like I said, I've got no silver bullets. There is none of those available. I wish there was. But I may can give you some ideas that would help you get started and be able to improve what you got.
Good. Unlike Ralph, I like to use a PowerPoint presentation because if I don't remember all the things I want to tell you. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about livestock selection today. I was asked specifically to talk about cattle selection. So we're going to do that. Eeny, meeny, miny, moo. Is that the way you pick them? You know, which one do you want to use? No, that's not going to help you very much. So we're going to talk about it a little bit. First of all, when you're selecting your livestock, when you're breeding livestock, half the genes come from the father, half the genes come from the mother, right? That just makes good sense. You put the two sperm and egg together, half genes from one, half genes from the other, you get your offspring. So which one should you pick to select? Well, I'm going to tell you, you need to focus on the bull. The reason for that is the cow's going to give you one calf per year most of the time. You'll get twins every once in a while, but most of us are going to get one calf per year out of our cow. How many calves are you going to get per year out of your bull?
Whatever the area is.
Should get 25 to 45, depending on how good your bull is and how many cows you put him on, right? It does not take long for one bull to make a tremendous contribution to the genetics of your herd. Very quickly, half the herd's genetics can be from that one bull. And when you consider his sire and his mother's sire, 87.5% of the genetics in your herd is really due to the bull side. Only a little tiny bit is due to the dam side. So you really want to focus on selecting the bull and making sure you're picking the best bull that you can get your hands on. Because you can't call out half your cows and stay in business and replace them all every year. But you can be very selective on bulls and which ones you use. So, as Ralph pointed out, you got to have some goals. You need to know what you're trying to sell. And there are a whole lot of ways to sell cows. You can take them down to the sale barn when they hit 500 pounds more or less, and you can sell them at auction like that, like people have done traditionally over the years. You might be selling to the local 4-H and FFA. You might be selling club steers. Certainly nothing wrong with that, and there's good money in it if you do it right. If you got good steers, some of those steers go for real money. You could sell grass-fed beef. You could sell organically grown. You can sell all kinds of things. You can sell seed stock. You can be producing bulls and replacement heifers for people. So what you're going to select is going to depend very much on what your goals are. That's going to be different for every herd. And I don't know how many times I've had people come to me and say, you know what, producers in this country need to all be producing this kind of animal right here, nothing more. Well, okay, that works real well right around here where we got plenty of grass and plenty of water, even though we didn't have it this past year. But you take that out to New Mexico, where you got to have something with a hump, something to live on tumbleweeds and run from clump to clump. All right, that's not what you can grow here is not going to fly out there. So it's different for every herd. One of the things you might want to think about is focusing on correcting your cow's weaknesses. When you look at your cow herd, what do you need to improve on it? I go out to a lot of herds and I see animals that have a lot of shoulder and not a lot of run. They don't carry the muscle far enough down the leg. And so if I'm looking at a bull to put on that herd, I'm looking at something that's going to put some more muscle on the back end of the cow, or at least on her calves. She's not going to get any more, but her calves could. Okay? So I'm going to look at things like that. I can also complement my cow's strengths. If they're easy calving cows and they produce lightweight calves that grow quickly, I'm gonna look for the same characteristics because I like those characteristics personally. That's my personal choice because I produce calves. That's what I like to produce. All right? But you can look at all kinds of things. Birth weight, weaning weight, carcass, color. Some people that's important to them. If you're going to sell over toward the Oklahoma market, they tend to like black cattle. If you're going to sell over toward Tennessee, they tend to like Charolais breeding. They want that white cow. So color makes a difference. If you're down in parts of Texas, they like spotted cows because you can get an awful lot of money off of a longhorn hide if you do it right. Okay, you can sell those hides. So color makes a difference. Disposition. I'm going to mention this one a couple of times. I like calm cows, docile cows. Okay? Docile cows produce heavier calves at weaning. They don't damage your facilities. They don't tear up your fences. And they don't hurt you. And we have culled several, have we not, Mr. Moss?
Correct.
Because they were like elk and deer. They were going over the chute and tearing up the chutes, and we have run people over, and we don't need that. They got on the bus and went to town. 60% of the disposition of your animals is heritable. If she's crazy, her kids are going to be crazy. And they're out there looking for something to get upset about to excite all the rest of them. I don't need that, and neither do you. So disposition is critically important. Go lay eyes on your bull, if you can. I mean, if you're getting him out of a straw, if you're getting him from ABS breeders or Select Sires or Gen X CRI or one of the other major bull studs, you know, I'm not going to go up to Montana, I might go up to Montana to look at what they've got at the ABS stud. Okay? So I can't actually lay eyes on him, but they've got a picture of him in the catalog. So go ahead and look at it. Because you're looking for some things. You're looking for structural soundness. Is he built correctly? Does he have all of his body parts where they ought to be? Are his legs nice and straight, or are they bent? Are they camped out? Is his hock sickle hocked? Is he cow hocked? What's he look like? Is his conformation good? Is his libido good? Will he actually go out and service your cows? You'll find bulls that just don't seem to be interested. They'll just stand around, look, cow being heat, she'll be right up against him. He won't do anything. Well, that's not helping you any. He's got a job to do, and he's not doing it. So get him out of there. You don't want that one. Disposition, there it is again. You don't want a bull that's going to challenge you in your fields. Now, that's not true of one guy I know, because he raises rodeo cattle. And he wants a nasty disposition. That's what he's paid for. And he actually makes good money on his little tiny herd. So that's fine. Scrotal circumference. This is one of the critical ones that you want to look at for bulls. And you will almost always see a scrotal circumference EPD. We'll talk about those in just a minute. The larger the scrotal circumference, the more sperm that bull will produce, the more fertile he's going to be, and the younger his daughters will be at age of puberty. And those are all important characteristics. We want our cows to hit puberty early because, generally speaking, we want them bred by the time they're 15 months of age. We want them pregnant then because we want that first calf, on average, at 2 years of age. Well, 24 months minus 9 for pregnancy means 15 months they need to be pregnant. If they start cycling at 15 months, if they hit puberty at 15 months, that first cycle is not very fertile. It's usually short. It lasts for about 7 to 9 days on average. She won't even know she's pregnant if you breed her. She'll flush that embryo out without ever knowing that she had it. It's that third cycle that tends to be most fertile. That means you're going to have to back up to 12 months of age. You need her to start cycling at 12 months. So that by 15 months, when you're ready for her to really get pregnant, she will. And at 24 months, she'll have that calf for you. So that scrotal circumference is a predictor of that. You want to look at things like horns. Do you want them to have horns? Are you raising longhorns? You can make money on longhorn horns. I said that right. Yeah, I did. But if you're selling at the feedlot, they don't always want that. They'll discount you on horns. Okay? The tool that you want to use for selection is an EPD. That's an expected progeny difference. And all this means, and you're going to see number after number, and I've got just one set of numbers right here. I've got these two sets of numbers right here. All that means is when I look at his offspring, I expect that they are going to be this much different from the average for that breed. We don't compare crossbreeds. I don't compare Angus to Chianina. Chianina are 6 feet tall at the shoulder. Okay? Angus, there they are, about 4.5, 5 feet tall, all right, for an average cow. I'm not going to compare those two, but within the breed. So for this guy right here, when I'm looking at his EPDs, I've got two bulls here, Objective and Objective 7-25. His EPD is plus 71 here at the top and plus 68 down here for this other one. That means on average, compared to the rest of the breed, and these are Angus bulls if I remember correctly, yep they are, American Angus Association, his calves at weaning are going to be 71 pounds heavier than the average for the breed. That's not bad. I'll take that. The other thing you're going to see is this accuracy statement over here. Okay? This one's 0.95, this one's 0.24. What does that mean? What that means is how sure I am that this is really the number that I'm going to get, really the difference I'm going to get. 95% certain that I'm going to get 71, only 24% certain that I'm going to get 68. And there's a reason for that. This bull right here is the offspring of this guy up here. Objective here has a lot of offspring. I've got a lot of information on his offspring. I know what his offspring do. 7125 doesn't have very many offspring. So I'm basing his performance on what he's actually done, because I can measure his weaning weight when he weans. And I can, it's not hard. Don't shake your head like that. It's easy. You don't have to do it. They're going to do it for you. All you need to do is look at the number and decide what you like. But I can look at him and I can look at his parents and see how they did. But I can't look at his offspring. He doesn't have it. So I don't really know what his offspring are going to produce. So all that means is that for this guy up here, my range, when my calves are born, I'm going to go from about 70.4 pounds to 71.6 pounds. Well, that's awful close to 71, isn't it? All right, but for this other guy, he's supposed to give me 68, but it could be all the way down here at 59 pounds or all the way up to 76 pounds, somewhere in that range. That's a pretty broad range for my calves. Now, as he produces offspring, that range is going to narrow, and my accuracy on him is going to go up. So as he gets older and I get more data on him, I'll know more. So all I'm telling you is that when you pick younger animals that have this lower accuracy rating, you might not get that number. You'll be within a range of that number, but it may not be that good. But we select EPDs because we're looking at what the performance of the offspring are going to be based on what that sire can pass on to his offspring. That's what we're really looking at. Okay? Well, how do I use that EPD? I can use a selection index. This is, I will tell you, bar none, the best way to determine which ones you want to use. Okay, this is my silver bullet. If you have a selection index, you're going to be happy. I'll give you a silver bullet. You're going to use multiple traits. I'm going to say I want something that's got low birth weights, high weaning weights, calving ease, and a good disposition. I got 4 traits there that I want to select on. And I'm going to look at the economics of that. What do I get paid for? Okay, how much do I get paid for it? I'm going to factor that into the equation. I'm going to factor inheritability. How much of that's actually transmissible versus how much of it's environmental. Okay, my growth rate might be a lot of environmental and not as much transmissible because I might have a better environment. I might need to tease that out. I'm going to look at genetic associations, and we'll talk about those. If I've got a high weaning weight bull, he might also give me high yearling weights. Those two things are generally connected. If he grows fast at weaning, he probably grows fast at yearling. But he's also probably got a higher birth weight, which might be a problem with the calving head. The problem with this silver bullet is this right here. That's what just some of the equations look like. Now, when I was a master's student at Montana State University, I had to take graduate level genetics, and I can do that. Or I could. I did pretty well in the class. If you make me do that, I'm not going to be your friend, because I haven't done this in a long time. It's not what I like to do. But we do have someone in the state who does that, so we can do that for you if you want. We can help you out. This is beyond what most people need. If you're a seed stock producer and you're producing bulls and heifers for people, you probably ought to have that. But if you're producing calves for sale to just about any other market, that's probably beyond what you need. Tandem selection is what a lot of people have used in the past. I don't know why we call this tandem, because when I think tandem, I think 2 things together. But with tandem selection, you're only selecting on one trait. And typically in the past, we all select on weaning weight. That's what we wanted. We wanted to have good weaning weights, because that's what we got paid for, right? You got your calves, took them to the market, sold them, you got your check. You got paid for what they weaned. And that's good, because if you select on one trait, you're going to get very rapid progress on that one trait. The problem is, once you get to that trait, you're going to start selecting on something else. You reached your goal. I got my 500-pound calves. Now what do I want? Well, I'm having a little bit of trouble getting them to calve out. The birth weights are getting a little high. So I'm going to start lowering my birth weights. Well, now I'm going to stop thinking about weaning weight over here. I'm going to go over here and focus just on my one trait, birth weight. And I start lowering it. What's going to happen to my weaning weights? They're going to start wandering away from where I want them to be. So now I got to go back over and start selecting on weaning weight again, and I'm going to forget about birth weight again. So it's hard to maintain your goal when you just select on one trait. So this is probably what most people should be thinking about, and this is independent culling levels. What you're going to do is you're going to pick a few things that are important to you. So like I said, I like calving ease, I like disposition, I like weaning weights, and I like birth weights. Okay? So I've got 4 traits I want to select on. And I'm going to pick a level for each one of those. So in this case, this one is for birth weight and for yearling weight. So what this guy is selecting on, he wants anything that's got 20 pounds or better above his average for yearling weight. So if his average is 900 pounds, anything that's got a 920 pound yearling weight or better, he wants to keep. But he's also got a birth weight idea. He doesn't want anything that has a birth weight that's 3 pounds, that's more than 3 pounds above average. So if his average is 85 pounds, if it's an 89 pound calf, he's not going to keep that one, because that would be +4, right? So we start out selecting. Well, none of these made it for yearling weight. They were all less than 20 pounds above the average for yearling weight. They were all fine for birth weight, but they weren't there for yearling weight. None of these were okay for either trait. These guys didn't make it for yearling weight, and they didn't make it for birth weight either. These made it for yearling weight, but they're way beyond what he wants for birth weight. So the only ones that he's actually going to keep for breeding is this little cluster right here that made both his birth weight and his yearling weight harder. You draw 2 lines on a sheet of paper and you just plot where those things are, and it comes out real easy. Okay? It's not hard to do. And we got people who can help you do it. Our extension agents can help you do it. I can help you do it. Plenty of people can help you with that. Another thing you have to consider, and we've already talked about one, are selection antagonisms. And Ralph was telling me earlier, he had a guy come out to him, he raises Angus bulls, he had a guy come out to him and said he wanted this weaning weight, this yearling weight, and this birth weight down here. Well, I can give you this weaning weight and this yearling weight, but I can't give you this birth weight down here because those 2 things are opposed to one another. They're antagonistic. Now, in most breeds, we have managed to select that connection apart because that birth weight is critically important to us. We want lighter calves so they're easier to calve out. So we can get low birth weight calves that still wean and grow well to yearling. But those 2 things are antagonistic. If you're selecting for high weaning weights, you're probably also selecting for high birth weights, not low birth weights. If you're selecting for red meat yield, in other words, you want carcasses that have a lot of meat on them, okay, yield grade 1, yield grade 2, not a lot of fat, you're probably selecting against red meat quality, because quality grade is based on what? What's that choice or prime or select quality grade based on? Boy, I can say you guys anything at Supermarket, can't I? Dadgum, I'm going to start doing this. Why is something prime? Why do we call it prime? It's got marbling. And what is marbling? That's right, that's fat right there. Things that put down a lot of muscle generally don't put down a lot of fat. So if you've got that high red meat yield, you're probably going to reduce your quality grade. You'll probably be in that select category rather than in that choice category. Okay? Fertility and reproduction versus growth rate and lean yield. Those big muscle animals generally are not as fertile. They're not as good a mother. They won't produce calves for you as easily. They don't get pregnant as quickly. Okay? Milk yield and maintenance. Milk, if they put out a lot of milk, that requires a lot of groceries, doesn't it? That takes a lot of feed. That raises your maintenance requirements. So if you want low maintenance cows, you might be selecting against yield on your milk production. Okay? So you've got some antagonisms you need to keep in mind. And so what I'm really getting at here when I talk about these antagonisms is don't select for maximum something. We do that too often. It's easy to do, especially as Americans. We get really hung up on something. We're either going to go all out with it or we're going to ban it. We will ban this. You may not do this anymore. We do not do moderation. Okay? That's part of our obesity epidemic. We eat and eat and eat and eat and eat, and we look in the mirror and say, oh my God, I got to do something about that. Let me go on a diet. We take everything off the table, and we do the yo-yo diet. We get really big, we get really small. We get really big, we get really small. Don't do that. We want to optimize production, not maximize production. Okay, same kind. Excuse me, same kind of thing. So, some of the things we want to think about. Frame size. What is frame size? You're going to see these on your EPDs. Okay, these are the things you're going to look at on EPDs. Frame size is describing the skeletal size of the cow. How big is that cow's skeleton? Bigger frame size, and this is a good way to evaluate lean to fat ratio. How much muscle versus how much fat. Why would that be? Big frame cattle, cattle with a lot of bone, have a lot of place to put muscle, right? But there's more to it than that. We grow bone, muscle, fat in that order. Look at a teenager. If you got teenage boys around, you've seen it happen. They hit 15, 16, and they are all knees and elbows. They got big hands, big feet, big knees, big elbows, long bones, and there ain't a lick of muscle on them. You can see every rib they got. You give them another year or two, and they're going to come home one day and they're going to say, "How's it going, Dad? I'll give you a little chuck," just to check and see how they're doing. Because they got a little bit of muscle on them now. They're feeling their oats. They're thinking that's pretty good. And then we start reaching our age and we start laying down that layer of fat. Very disappointing, I have to tell you. Bigger framed animals are going to take longer to get to that point where they're going to lay down fat, because they've got more bone to grow and more muscle to grow before they're going to get to fat. So if they're a bigger framed animal, they generally don't put as much fat down. That gives us a good indicator of lean to fat ratio. Frame size is related to slaughter weight. The bigger animals have higher slaughter weights because we have to feed them longer. Bone's got to grow, the muscle's got to grow. So if we've got the big steers, 7, 8, and 9, they're going to grade choice at 1,250 pounds. Medium frame, only 1,100 pounds. Small frame, you might be down to 1,000 pounds. You need to send them in. Because if you take them to 1,100, 1,200 pounds, they're going to be very fat. They're going to be very wasty. Okay? So it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. And that is a quality issue. We want to make sure we're not sending animals that are too fat to the slaughterhouse. Hip height is an easy way to help determine what that is. You're shaking your head. Why are you shaking your head? You're shaking your head.
He asked, was there many Herefords around? I told him no.
Not so many. You can find some though. There are few around. Hip height is just a way to measure that. You're going to measure how tall that animal is at the hip. That's telling you how much bone she's growing. Okay? It's an easy way to do that. Larger frame, and we talked about larger frame cattle needing more feed because they're bigger. They got more maintenance requirement. They got more muscle. You want to match your bull frame size to your cow frame size. Okay? That's how you target your calf growth. First of all, back in the early 80s, mid-80s, everybody was excited about the new European breeds we had on the market. We had Charolais, we had Simmental. They were big. And we were accustomed to these little tiny cows, and we were trying to breed them up some. Well, I remember when I was an undergrad, we got a gift of a Simmental semen from this frame size 9 bull. We had these little Hereford Angus cross cows. And somebody decided that the thing to do was to breed that bull to the heifers that year. We pulled every single calf we had out of every single one of those heifers. And we lost a few because they were simply too big. You got to match. Can your cow handle that calf from that bull? And then, if she can, is there something you can do to improve the efficiency of your operation? Because you can have some medium-sized cows, even some fairly small cows if they're easy calving cows, and you can produce very large calves by choosing the right bull. If she'll take care of it, if she's capable of doing that. So you can match your frame size on your bull and your cow to make an efficient cow that doesn't take a lot of feed, and put a bull on her that will produce a very large calf that you can sell. Okay? If you're careful about it. Muscling is another thing that you're going to see EPDs on. That affects your yield grades, your daily gains, because muscle is put down more efficiently than fat is. So your average daily gain will go up the more muscle the animal has. The more fat they have on, the more feed it takes, average daily gains go down. Also, if they're lightly muscled cattle, these guys down here, do they really pay you very much for that at the sale barn? They look awful, don't they?
There's some people like them, kind of like.
Well, there are people who like them, but usually they want them to weigh 300 or 400 pounds because what they've been is just underfed. And so they'll put those on their place, and you'll get compensatory growth, where they'll grow very rapidly and very efficiently because they're laying down a lot of muscle and trying to catch up to where they should be. But if that's how lightly muscled they are, and that's the way they would normally look, you know, right down here, this number 3, really thin, you can see it's a really thin animal, you're going to get discounted with that, because I'm not going to get as much meat off of that one. I'm going to get a lot more bone, a lot more viscera. I'm not going to like that. So to evaluate that, you want to look at the quarter or the round, you want to look at the stifle, the gaskin, the shoulder, forearm. You want to see that they're carrying their muscle all the way down the leg. You can see right down here, all the way down the leg. You don't want it to stop up here. You want to look at how long the back is, how broad the back is. Don't just look at one spot. Get an evaluation of the entire animal to find out how much meat you're actually getting on that animal. All right? The other problem is if your muscles, if the animals are extremely muscled, if they're very blocky, very muscular, the heifers can often have fertility issues. Okay, so you might want to think about not choosing the most muscled thing you can find from a reproductive standpoint. Good for the sale barn, not so good for the animals that you're going to keep at home and raise calves off of. We look at a lot of different growth traits, and you'll see EPDs for just about every one of these on some of the breed association sites. There'll be a weaning weight EPD, a yearling weight EPD. There'll be average daily gain, weight per day of age. How those two are different, I'm not really sure. Adjusted weaning weights, adjusted yearling weights, weight ratios within groups, there are all sorts of ways to chop this up. What this is really doing is telling you just how rapidly the animal grows, how quickly it'll reach your goal. Okay? Some of these are better than others. I like the adjusted weaning weights and adjusted yearling weights because look, when you have calves on your place, what day are they born? Which day? Do you have them all on, say, March the 13th? No? March the 14th then?
Generally the wettest and coldest day of the year.
They're going to be all over the place, aren't they? You're going to have calves for, 45, 60 days, 80 days. Some people calve year round. Well, if I have a calf that's born on March the 1st, and I have a calf that's born on May the 31st, and I sell them all on October the 15th, which one's going to weigh more? Yeah, the March-born calf. Why? Yeah, it's had 60 more days to grow. So when I look at them on my day that I wean them and evaluate them for their weaning weight, am I getting an accurate picture of which one's better? No, I need to adjust that weaning weight. And so I adjust that by looking at how much they grew every day, and then multiply that by a set number of days. I just adjust the weaning weight. It's just a calculation to make sure that I'm doing a good genetic comparison and not the environmental comparison, including birth date. Okay? You can look at carcass traits. If you're selling bulls or if you're selling replacement cows, you can do carcass traits on the live animal. You get an ultrasound machine, you can measure back fat, you can measure ribeye area, you can see the marbling in there. Look at that. You can tell me, I can tell you what kind of steak that animal's going to give me before you put it on the rail. And that's going to be something I'm going to want to know if I'm a producer being paid on a grid. If I get paid for the marbling and the quality of that carcass and the yield rate on that carcass out of my calves, if I get a premium for every one that I send through, I want a bull that's going to give me that. And if you can show me that picture and tell me what he's going to give me, I'm going to be willing to pay more for that bull. So you can often get carcass data on bulls that aren't dead, and then you'll also get more carcass data because they'll examine the offspring from that bull and send back what their carcasses were as well to the breeding stud so that they can calculate for you what that's going to be as well. Calving ease. You don't ever want to be in this situation. I don't know anybody who's got 4 guys standing around waiting for calves to come out, and you sure don't want to have 4 guys having to pull on the calf to get it out. And I've done that before. Okay? It was me and 3 other guys pulling a 120-pound dairy bull calf out of a dairy heifer at an elite sale. This heifer was supposed to go for between $3,000 and $5,000. Well, that bull calf was born dead because it took so much effort to get it out, and she was blind in 2 quarters, so she wasn't going to give milk out of 2 1/4. So they just put her on the truck and took her to town that day. That was the end for her. A lot of things affect how easily she can calve. That includes things like age. That includes things like the sex of the calf. That includes all of this information. That all goes into calving ease EPD. So you get a lot of information about a cow and how she works on your farm based on her calving ease EPD. And I like easy calving cows. Milk EPDs, we don't milk them. I don't know about you guys, but if I have to go out and milk beef cows, not only am I doing something wrong, but they don't like it very much. They have an issue with that.
You want to kick?
They do want to kick. Yes, they do. And so you have to do something about that. So really what we're doing is we're looking at pounds of calf weaned that's due to the milk production. We're actually breaking out how much of that weaning weight is due to milk production versus actual milk production. We're not milking the cow out to see how much she's producing. But remember, as that production increases, the nutritional requirements of that dam are going to increase as well. The more milk she produces, the more energy she's putting out. The more energy she's putting out, the more she's got to eat. Okay? So you need to optimize, not maximize. Scrotal circumference. I mentioned it before and I'll mention it again. You will always see EPDs for scrotal circumference. And you should see a scrotal circumference measurement on all of the bulls that you purchase. Yearling scrotal circumference indicates sperm producing capacity, and larger scrotal circumference indicates more fertility and also is well correlated with the daughter's age of puberty. Okay? Those 2 things are very important. The bull's not fertile, he's not worth having. Now, a breeding soundness exam is not a genetic selection tool. By the time you get to this point, you have already selected your bull. That's the bull I want. I think he's going to be great on my place. before you buy him, you need to have a breeding soundness exam. Every year before you use him, you need to have a breeding soundness exam done on him. The veterinarian is going to check to see if he's producing live motile sperm that have the correct shape, that they're able to move, that they swim, that they don't have a lot of droplets on them. He's using the real live ammunition, not blanks. They're also going to check to see whether or not that bull is capable of extending his penis. It is not uncommon for a bull to get an injury. They can get stepped on, they can get thorns or other things stuck in that prepuce, and that can cause an adhesion. There will be some scar tissue that will make the penis stick inside the prepuce, and he can't extend. Well, I don't care how good the sperm are, if he can't actually copulate with the female, you're not going to get any calves. So this exam is going to let you know every year whether or not your bull is any good for actual use. Okay? It's not going to tell you genetically how he's doing. You've already done all of that. Now you need to know if you can actually use him on your place. If he fails that breeding soundness exam, you don't keep him for breeding and don't sell him for breeding. Make sure people are aware that he's being sold for beef and beef only. Okay? Because if you get a bull that doesn't pass this exam and he's used to breed 40 or 50 cows, how many calves is he going to get? None. That's going to hurt. Okay? You want to look at structural soundness. We talked some about that earlier, but there are some important reasons for looking at that. We want to make sure that the bull can get around on your property, that he can mate calves. So his feet have to be good, his legs have to be good, his eyes have to be good. You want to make sure that he can walk freely and easily, he takes nice long strides, he's got good flex in his joints. You don't want something that's stiff and barely able to move it. You don't want something post-legged, because after a while that pressure on those joints is going to build up to the point where he's not going to be able to mount and do anything. A bull should look like a bull. Okay? He should have good conformation, he should have plenty of muscle on him, he ought to look like a bull. You want to make sure that he's going to be capable of eating, so you're going to want to make sure that he's got plenty of room here in the barrel. Shoulders need to be wide because he is a bull, but not too wide. Because if they're too wide, calves are going to look like that too. Calf like that, birth canal like that, 4 guys to pull it out. That's a problem. Okay? Sorry? Well, yes, you may. Excessively fat bulls are often low libido bulls. They don't want to get out and breed. So you might want to think about it. If he's excessively fat, he might not be good to use. The other thing, we do have a fair amount of Brahman-type breeding in the southern states. And that's not a bad thing. We get heat resistance, we get insect resistance, we get disease resistance. That's a good thing. The problem we get is we get this extra skin here and the sheath hangs down. Well, this grass is not Ralph's grass. It's only a few inches high. But if that grass were taller, or if there are weeds in there and they've got lawns on the seeds, or if you've got brambles and briars or brush, it would not be uncommon for him to get an injury because his sheath is dangling down so high. If he has an infection, is he going to want to breed? No, he's not. He could get an adhesion and be unable to breed. So you want to make sure that they've got a fairly tight sheath. And then there are a lot of other factors you can use, and this is all back to your goals. What do you want to raise? So, horns, do you want them or not? Horn calves are discounted at sale because when you put those horn calves out on the feedlot, they will fight with the other animals. And if they've got horns and the others don't, who wins?
Horns.
The one with the horns. So that means he gets the feed bunk and the others don't. He gains and the others don't. They don't want that on the feedlot. There will be bruised meat underneath the hide. There will be damaged hides, all that kind of stuff. I see you, Janet. I'm almost done. They can kill each other. Coat color. If you're selling to Oklahoma, they want black. If you're selling to Tennessee, they want those white Charolais cattle. Doesn't matter once you peel them. They're all red and white underneath. Okay, you just have to feed them to the right size and weight. And then, you know, if you're down in Texas, that spotted color right there, you make good money on that spotted cattle because they'll make that hide into a decoration. They'll pay you for the hide. And then just perception of breed composition. If they see too much ear, too much sheath, you'll often get discounted. So, I'm out of time because Janet's waving at me, and I'm also all done. So I want you to tell me, I've done my breeding. What am I going to get?
Money.
Spotted in.
What am I going to get out of that?
Spotted in.
Good nest egg.
A good nest egg. All right, that's what I like.